Hello, welcome to Life from Above. My name is David Kinney. Glad you could watch the program with us. Today we have a special guest, Brother Joe Wells. Joe, great to have you on the program. Thanks for coming in. I know you travel all over the place.
Hey, I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you for having me on, my friend. Yeah. It's an honor.
Well, I got to hear you I think it was last year at the Alkire Road Youth Rally. You did a great job, and I know my kids really enjoyed hearing you. And you're having a gospel meeting in Streetsboro. Of course, that'll be closed by the time people watch this, but I know that they have very much enjoyed getting to see and hear you. So hopefully people will be able to come and hear you, and it'll be a great meeting. I know that's a great congregation there in Streetsboro, Ohio.
I appreciate it. They've treated us very well. Very friendly congregation. Yeah. So I can tell you this, some people are looking for a nice, loving family, and I would highly recommend Streetsboro.
Yeah, they've always been very kind to us. We came from Free-Hardeman and didn't know hardly any of them. And they opened up they had a parsonage. They didn't have a preacher at the time. They let us stay there, and they looked after us, and we think very highly of that group. Just a little bit about Joe, if you don't mind. Bachelor of Science in Science.
Yeah,
right?
It's ironic, isn't it?
You actually have a bachelor's in science, not just the BS degree. Where was that at? Where'd you go for that?
It was at Middle Tennessee State University.
Okay.
And it's funny, I wanted to go play college football. And so I laid off a year, went there, and played college football for 2 weeks. And decided that it wasn't for me. I liked football, I didn't love it. And so that's when I went into athletic training. And that's my background, more sports medicine.
Okay. You went to, we were talking earlier about the Nashville School of Preaching. You went there, attended there. Of course, I'm very fond of that because my father also went there, but different years, obviously. Yeah. And then you also have a Master in Ministry from the School of Theology at Free-Hardeman University. How was that program? I mean, challenging, like it?
It definitely was challenging. And biggest difference from the undergraduate to the graduate degree program concept was your writing and your research. And I understand as you go on further into your PhD, it even gets more intense. But I will say this, I was challenged in ways that I had not been challenged in before up to that point in time. But it was also done in a way that professors were wanting to bring me along. Mm-hmm. And they really did care about me, and they cared that I succeeded. And so I couldn't have imagined a better place to go get my master's degree than Free-Hardeman.
Yeah, it's a great school. A little bit about your family. Wife, Erin. How many years now?
Yep, coming up on 15 this week.
Great.
Yeah.
Little math quiz there for you.
That's right. I had to check my ring, right?
4 children. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your children?
Absolutely. We've got 3 boys and 1 girl. And Colton is 13 years old, just hit the teenage years. And so I'm learning that I'm not as smart as I guess I think I am. We have a little girl who's the second child, who's 11 years old. And then we skipped 4 years and had 2 other children, Camden and Bennett. And Camden is 7 and Bennett is 5. So our children range from age 13 down to 5, and they are wrapped up in baseball and anything you could imagine. Kids that love to play outside. They love to play on the game systems. I mean, we try to monitor that, but they love that. They're just regular kids. But the neat thing about it is that we choose to homeschool. And so they have the opportunity to travel with us and meet people from across the country. And they're here with us this week, and I'm glad that they are.
I'm glad to meet one of your sons, so he's here with us. Live in Spring Hill, Tennessee. That's where you call home right now, I guess.
It is.
And you preach for the Concord Road Church of Christ?
Well, I'm one of their ministers.
Okay.
Concord Road has 3 ministers, and I'm in the associate minister position.
Okay.
But yes, that's in Brentwood, and if you've ever been to Middle Tennessee, you know that Nashville is in the center, and then Brentwood, and then Spring Hill is 2 communities below that. Spring Hill was the home to the Saturn automobile for a long time, and so that's kind of one of the ways that we're known, being there in that area. But beautiful place, loving congregation, Concord Road Church of Christ. And obviously, if you ever go to that area, I would encourage you to visit us there too.
I know it's a very nice place. You're on the road, you're traveling, you're speaking to young people, you're doing youth rallies. I know you're busy, and I'm sure your children love it. And they'll, even though there's probably times when they're like,
did we have to go again?
Yeah, but they'll look back on it, and I'm sure they'll treasure the time that they have. A lot of children in our country, they don't have that. They don't have any of that, and that's a shame.
You're right.
You're also the founder of Kayo Publications. I had to make sure I say it
There
right.
you
We'll show you the emblem here of Kayo Publications. Why don't you tell them what Kayo means or refers to?
Sure. Kaio is a Greek word that means to be on fire from the inside out, kind of to have this burning from the inside out. And the whole concept behind this nonprofit publishing company is we want to inspire and equip individuals to truly step outside of the cultural expectations. You know, the reality is we live in a time period where dads are kind of put in a bubble, and unfortunately that bubble is that most men, when they're portrayed on the media and they're portrayed in certain areas, they're the bumbling, don't know anything type figure, and almost like another child. And then, of course, you've got kids who are taught to not respect authority, and that's shown through a lot of the cultural expectations. And it's interesting to see the changes in society. So Kaio actually at its core is this idea of trying to equip and inspire people to step outside of the cultural lines, to be what God would have us to be instead of what culture would have us to be. And it is truly that idea of being on fire for the Lord, so much so that it shows. Not just we talk about it, but it actually is seen in the way we live our life. So that really kind of tells you the background of that word, but it also kind of why that word was chosen for our company.
Well, I grabbed some of your publishing that you've done, and you can see some of that with the type of literature you publish. For example, we have a picture of the family devotional series. Why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, the family devotional series, it is the concept at its core, it's this, that if we can get families studying the Bible at home, and moms and dads being what God has called them to be, the spiritual leaders of their home, then what's going to happen is that's going to translate into stronger families that sit in the pews of the congregation. And if those families sit in the pews that are stronger, then the church as a whole will become stronger in that particular place. And so the idea is this: if we want to strengthen our churches, then we must strengthen the home. And so the family devotional concept, it really is this idea of many men and mothers, they're a little intimidated by that idea, almost thinking that they don't know enough. Well, I've never done it. My mom and dad never showed me how to do it, and so I don't know where to start. Well, what we wanted to do was take away those apprehensions by creating something in this family devotional set that was easy to follow and very relatable. And so what we did is all of these family family devotional series, they are all object lesson based. And by that I mean a mom or a dad, you can go into the kitchen and grab a spatula. And from that spatula, you can actually teach a Bible lesson, connecting it in a real way to Bible passages. And that way, when that family leaves that devotional time period, well, they're going to pick that spatula up in the future sometime. And the goal is that you didn't just have family Bible time that one time, but that every time they pick that up, they're going to think, oh, I remember when Dad used this, and this was the lesson that he attached to it.
That's right.
And so it's messages that stick with. But in the family devotional series, we've had many authors write and help us with that. But we actually have 365 of them. They're in 12 different sets. And devotionals from science experiments, devotionals from the garage, devotionals from the laundry room, from the kitchen, from the garden, from sports, from the great outdoors. And so it really is a neat set of lessons that pulls from a lot of different areas.
Well, great. And then another one, obviously, when you do that, when you start homeschooling, you're talking about elementary school, junior high, high school. But I really like the one you have here, a children's book, Football the Piggy. Why don't you tell them a little bit about that? I don't think that's an 8th grade book, but tell them a little bit about that.
Not an 8th grade book, and as a matter of fact, when you read that, it's kind of ironic in the concept of naming a pig football. Mm-hmm. And you'd look at that and you'd say, well, where did that ever come up from? And I will tell you this, Football the Piggy has been very special to my family. Because our bedtime routine has typically been where we would go in and I would have prayers with the kids, and then they would want me to read some type of story to them or tell a story. Well, when my oldest, who's now 13, was very, very young, we actually created, I say we, there was a character as we started telling the story, he actually named the pig Football. That was some time ago. But it would be one of those stories where I would start telling it and then my children would fill in the blanks, right? And so they got to participate in the storytelling. Well, as we started advancing with the company and looking at areas that we could help serve, we thought that it would be beneficial for us to have a fully illustrated children's book that parents could read to their children at night, but it not just be a secular book. It be a book that teaches Christian principle and Christian character. And so the Football the Piggy book is a beginning of a series that's going to use the fruit of the Spirit as the outline for our books. And so a mom and a dad can read to their children at night, but they know at the base behind those lessons are going to be biblical principles teaching our children to be what God would have us to be. So we're very proud of the Football the Piggy series.
Oh, I bet. And then another one here I liked, Finer Grounds Bible Study Series for women, by women.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
So
there's a ministry for women, and they're members of the Church of Christ. It's called Come Fill Your Cup. And it is a phenomenal ministry. I would encourage you to look it up online. But the Finer Ground series is from them. They came to us and said, would you consider publishing these ladies' Bible studies that we're doing? And we looked at them, and weighed them and said, yes, we think that would work, and they're good in depth. And that's one of the things that probably separates the Finer Grounds Ladies Bible Study series from a lot of others is these aren't meant to be as surface, or I call it as fluffy. These are meant to dive deeper into the Scripture and to really be a Bible study. And we've got ladies that will utilize them in individual study time, women who want to devote a certain amount of time a day to the Bible study. We've got Bible classes that use them, ladies' Bible classes. And what's funny is we've even had men come up and say, I know it says for ladies, but is that content, is that something? I said, well, the content is great. I said, just be aware they use ladies' illustrations. And, if you wanted to read the content, I've read them all, and they're really good books. But it would benefit them in their own personal study. So the Finer Grounds work is something I highly encourage folks to take a look into.
Now, I also know you did, you're not doing it right now, but you did, I think, an online magazine, Illuminate?
Yes. That was actually the magazine that started, I guess you could say it was our flagship product at Kyle Publications, and it was really neat, and I think we were on the cutting edge of something that America just wasn't ready for in totality, was an online or an app-based magazine. You pull out your smartphone, you pull out your tablet, hit an app, and there is a Christian magazine that is interactive. I could embed videos in it, I could hyperlink, and it was really neat because the app looked like a bookstore. And so all of the magazines were kept there and they were backlogged. We put that project on pause. I say pause because we would love to bring it back. However, if some people go to kylepublications.org, I believe we still have some samples there, and they can see what that looks like. But I say we were a little ahead of the curve. People still like to handle magazines.
They do.
That was some time ago. So the transition will occur. There's no doubt it will. And when it does, we're there to be ready for it. But kids loved it. It was just a little ahead of its curve. So we'll bring it back. Be looking for it.
I know that our local paper, the Wadsworth Post, they have moved to a digital. They still do the hard copy.
Yep.
But they're moving to that next generation. How long they'll do the print, I don't know. I imagine it's hard to. They still print phone books. I mean, who uses a phone book anymore? But they still print them.
Hey, you still get them. Well, and that's the thing from a business perspective, and that's what this decision is. It's not whether or not the content is good. It's the idea of what is the most effective to relay the information in a way that the company can still continue to exist. And so I can respect your newspaper that does that, and that's why we had to put the magazine on pause.
It's understandable. You also write. I mean, all the books we talked about, I think you might have had a hand in here or there along the way, but you've written 2 books yourself. The first one I have up here, A Game Plan. Why don't you tell them a little bit about that book?
Yeah, Game Plan is a full-color, very well done published book, and it's not because I wrote it. It was the publisher who did a very good job with the publishing of it. But one of the things I've had a privilege of doing over the years is studying in depth the teenage culture. And I don't say that from a way that says, well, I'm a know-it-all and I have everything figured out. I'm just saying there were about 4.5 years of my life that I was devoted to research and study of the teenage culture, finding out reasons, why maybe certain media trends were what they were, what marketing techniques were being utilized, what belief systems existed, looking at morals and ethics as it changed over the years, researching the trends in movies and why those changed, the trends in music. And it was quite interesting and very eye-opening, which is why I get to speak, I guess, to a lot of teenagers. And I'm blessed and very fortunate to be able to do that. I'm grateful to have those opportunities. But the book Game Plan, it is a compilation, or I've compiled all of that research into one book from the standpoint of where did teenagers even come from? You look at that and you say, well, where did it come from? Well, it may surprise some people. There was a time in America that the word teenager didn't exist. That demographic didn't exist. And so it really is interesting to look at post-World War II to see the trends and what happened. And now you got parents that are, trying to bring them along, but culture's impacting them, and how do parents who want their children to be God-fearing and obey what God has given us in His will in the Bible, there's a lot of noise out there from culture that's saying otherwise. Mm-hmm. And the parents have got to be equipped and ready to help their children to combat that. And so the book Game Plan, it literally is that idea. Before a football team goes out on the field, you have a game plan, and you study it, and you work it, and you know it. And so that book, it covers everything from agendas attacking America to where did teenagers come from to what can we do in the family unit to bring stability. It looks at a little bit of human development, child psychology. It looks at what's going on in the world with absolute truth and how are teenagers responding to that, and then the expectations that God has for young people. Those are just some of the topics, but it was definitely a labor of love and took a lot of time to compile that.
So teenagers do come from Earth still.
They still come from Earth. Yes, they're not aliens. They come from Earth. Yes.
And then I think I'm not sure if I have the chronology right, but you're coming out with a new book, or it just came out, Sin to Salvation?
Yes, just did.
All right. Why don't you tell them a little bit about this one?
Yeah, Sin to Salvation. It was a manuscript that I wrote some time ago, but it was just not one of those on the front of my burner as I started advancing. And with anything, the longer you live, hopefully the more you learn and you grow. And so what I was able to do was take that manuscript that had never been published and was able to tweak it and kind of bring it along. But it's a book written for junior high and high school students. And what it is, when you look at the Bible, sometimes we get caught up in individual narratives of the Bible. And we study Joseph in the coat of many colors, and David and Goliath, and Jonah and the big fish, and we talk about Jesus on the cross. All of those definitely need to be studied. That's not the question. But the deal is, sometimes we forget that from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, there is a main theme and a main message, and that is God wanting to redeem mankind. And so what this book does is it actually traces that theme through the Bible in a way that teenagers can get and understand. It's not written for adults in the sense of, well, Joe, you could have gone deeper on this subject or deeper on... Well, yes, I could have if I were writing to adults, but this was a book specifically written for teenagers. And it's a great book from the standpoint of utilizing their individual study, to be affirmed in their beliefs, to be able to understand what God's Word says and not have to wonder if it lines up with everybody else. Well, just worry about God's Word. It's being used in Bible classes. It's also an evangelistic tool. If there is maybe a teenager has a friend that they've been wanting to talk to about the Lord, then that would be a book they could actually give that young person to the book to, and the two of them could sit down and work through the book together. It's one of those books. It has discussion questions, condensed lessons that could be learned, and so it's very user-friendly is what I tried to do with it.
Great. You also, I'm sort of interested in hearing more about the Hey Joe show. I'm assuming you're the star of that show.
Yeah, well, I hate to say star.
Well, yeah.
But the Hey Joe show, of course, my wife Erin is on that show too. We started with the Hey Joe show because that was just a name that we brought from some time ago when the show started, and it was just me. But the tagline is straight talk for teens and families. And so the idea behind that show is I don't have time to beat around the bush on the show. And teenagers, what I have discovered about teenagers are they would much rather you speak very directly to them than to pretend like they can't handle it.
Sure.
And so I don't candy coat and sugarcoat it. I hit issues straight on, issues that are very real. I research still what issues are pertinent and pertaining to young people. And so what we try to do is each show will take one topic or two topics, and we will address them straight on from a studied perspective and from a biblical worldview perspective. And what's neat about it is we're able to go live on Facebook Live. And so we have viewers that will watch it, and they have the ability to write back to us. And so it gives viewer interaction. And so when comments are made via Facebook, then we can address those on the show live. But it comes out on a platform that's called the Light Network. If you've never heard about the Light Network, I encourage you to look them up online. The very good group of a podcast family is what it is. Very sound, very good guys on there and ladies. But we're blessed to be a part of their network, the Light Network. And so it comes out on the Light Network every Thursday. They publish it. It's on iTunes. You can actually go and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Or you can watch it live on Facebook Live, and we usually record it on Sunday nights.
And then where would they find the Hey Joe Show on Facebook?
Yeah, at the KAIO Publication Facebook page.
Okay.
That's KAIO Publications. And if you just search that in, you'll see the KP logo with the flame in the middle.
Sure.
And you can like that page. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to watch even past episodes of the Hey Joe Show. And sometimes we have live audiences. That makes it great when I'm at a congregation and maybe there's a youth group that's able to sit in live with me, and I'm able to get their feedback live and bring them up to the mic and interview them. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun and a lot of work, and it's a ministry that it's like the TV program. You reach people that otherwise you may never come in contact with.
That's right.
And so for us, we're happy. We get somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 folks that will watch it live on Facebook, either live or they'll tune in after the fact and watch it as an archive video, rather. And then I don't know what we're at on our iTunes, and I don't know where we're at on the Light Network, but either way, it allows us to minister to people that we would otherwise not come in contact with. So,
well, great. Well, it's been a few years since you and I have been teenagers.
Just a few.
I think the Pittsburgh Pirates won the World Series when I became a teenager.
That was a good year, wasn't it?
That was a great year. Kent DeColvey and that underarm throw he would do. But, give him, and we got like a minute left.
Okay.
Give them just real quick. I mean, a parent today, they were a teenager one time too, but their teenagers today they're in a totally different environment. Mm-hmm. What would you think would be some of the things a parent needs to pay attention to? Real quick. I mean, obviously.
Well, very quick, I would say this. It's not that your kids encounter things that you didn't encounter, as far as like drugs, alcohol, sex, things on those lines. It's that the availability of it is so much greater. And the reality is it's so easier to obtain. And so when you think about the day where an individual had to go into a store to purchase pornography, now teenagers can sit in a circle and exchange web addresses where they can get pornography for free. So I would say this, be aware of the availability that you allow to your children. I would say this, you better be watching their media habits. Don't think because you put a lock on the computer that they're not accessing it on their cell phones. That's still the number one way that they absorb information. So that would be, in a very short period of time, that's what I would say. But I would also say this, don't ever underestimate the agendas that are also being fed to your kids. Do not belittle them. Use them as opportunities to talk and to teach your children a biblical worldview of how they are to address and respond to those.
Well, Joe, it's always a pleasure to see you. It's always great to talk to you. Hopefully people will tune into your show, get to learn more about you and your family, and also the publishing work. And thanks a lot for coming in.
I appreciate it, brother. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. That's all the time we have from Light from Above. Glad you can be with us. Thanks again for watching.
1. Speech on. Music rec selected. Screen recording.